Hello and welcome to this special presentation of AstroPsych 400. My name is Ned DeHaan, and in addition to hosting this program, I'm also the host of BlackBoxOnlineRadio, which is mostly a true crime channel here on YouTube. But I wanted to talk about today's subject over here on AstroPsych because there's this movement out there called the Black Pill, and its followers are referred to as Black Pillars. I first learned about it in 2019 from the channel Bulldog Mindset, which is hosted by John Sonmez, and he also did a discussion about it with Dr. Robert Glover, who is the author of the books No More Mr. Nice Guy and Dating Essentials for Men, and I'm really quite surprised, because I thought this black pill movement was going to go away or disappear, but instead, the numbers are increasing and more people are buying into it. So firstly, what is the black pill? Just to give the most basic Wiktionary definition, a black pillar is a person who has adopted a nihilistic philosophy, especially an incel or involuntary celibate, who believes that unattractive men will never be sexually or romantically successful. And I just learned about this guy who's a rather young YouTuber from the United Kingdom. His name is Wheat Waffles. That's not his real name, but obviously, I mean, right. But firstly, can I just say, wheat waffles are an amazingly underrated food. Like whole wheat waffles, I love those things. Multi-grain pancakes as well, absolutely underrated. I can't get enough of that stuff. But he also has been gaining in some popularity, and I didn't know that he was going to be British when I heard him for the first time, which was on an episode from the channel. What's that one called? Playing with Fire. I thought that there was going to be this guy who's going to be like, women only care about your looks, some type of really rough and nasty voice, but he's just like, there are three basic components of the black pill ideology. I was like, whoa, wow, where did that come from? But he also provided some things in addition to this Wiktionary definition, and that is that there are three main tenets of the black pill philosophy, and that is the first is that hypergamy is real. Hypergamy meaning that women are going to try to use their sexuality to enter into higher classes. I know that's not the best definition, but somewhere in that ballpark. The second is that looks are the most important, and the third is looks and physical appearances are things that you cannot change. But I recently just found another YouTube channel called The Josh Speaks, which has a video out on the black pill movement, and I also really like the definition that he provided in his video. So let's have a listen right now. I said right now.
What exactly is the black pill? Well, if you've ever heard of the movie The Matrix, you might have heard of this red pill versus blue pill concept. Basically, to take the blue pill means to live in this manufactured reality, one that society has dictated for you with norms and traditions and customs that are said to always work out, but really actually don't. And that leads us to the red pill, which is to finally wake up, to see the matrix, to see the world for what it really is and how it actually operates. This blue pill, red pill concept tends to make its way into other facets of life, like dating, for example. By taking the blue pill, you're assuring that by being a nice guy, sweet, caring, and loving all the time, that girl's going to realize how awesome of a person you are, and the two of you are going to live happily ever after. But by taking the red pill, you're realizing that girls like guys with a bit of edge. Girls don't want a guy that they can walk all over, and you have to kind of be a bit of a jerk in order to get them to like you. And that's something I've talked about, balancing both of those types of characteristics, but the black pill is something totally different. The black pill is basically telling you that, listen, if you are a certain race, if you're not a certain height, if you're not making a certain amount of money, then you have no chance of dating. It's not even worth trying. You've given up on even just pursuing people, of trying to date them because you have no chance. Whoa, that's a harsh...
Yeah, that is a harsh concept to accept, but I'm really surprised that people are buying into this, and I'm surprised that the followers and believers in this type of thinking are growing. And as I said, I was watching those debates that are available on the channel Playing with Fire, as well as listening to some other YouTubers out there talking about the black pill. And what I noticed was that they're heavily, heavily focused on online dating, and they mostly think that that's the only way to try and meet people. But some of the most successful pickup artists, for lack of a better term, that I've known really excelled in dating outside of the online communities. By pickup artists, I mean people who are very good at the art of seduction, or I mean, that's probably too glamorous for what they were actually doing. Good at getting girls to spend the night with them, for lack of a better term. One of the best pickup artists I knew was a guy who was 5 feet 2 inches tall, and he was fat. He was somewhat overweight, but he could get any girl that he wanted. And how did he do that? I mean, he had his method, and he didn't share all of it, but like it was just what he said, it was the way he acted, the way he carried himself, and I didn't see him in action all the time, but I mean, I met his girlfriend, and I met his ex-girlfriend because, he could go from one to another, but he had only actually had 25 partners. It's just he was like a serial monogamist. Like he's been maybe in a relationship for a year with one person, then moves on to another person. But we were at a company party once. It may have even been the Christmas party, but somebody made a comment, "You could never get with that girl." And he's like, "Watch me." And he walked over and he started talking to her. And later that night, they went home together. They went back to her place, and he was shorter than her, and it didn't matter. He's completely out of shape. It didn't matter. It's what he was saying and what he was doing, and it's the way that he was acting. So it's absolute nonsense to say that because you're not a certain height, or you're not a certain body type, or you don't have a certain social status. Well, I mean, firstly, social status, that's not even connected to your looks. Oh, by the way, that guy I was just telling you about, he was dirt poor. Absolutely dirt poor. One time we got our paychecks and he had $0 in the bank, and then he's like, not even a single cent. It was like absolute zero. So the whole point is that you can use things such as your behavior, your personality, confidence, character traits, and all of that stuff can be combined together to try and meet people. And right now, there's a little bit of an obsession with online dating, and I completely understand that in the Western world it's going to be more difficult to try and use these types of platforms, but it can be done. Another example of this was my closest friend from college was a rather big guy. He was over 300 pounds, and after college, he moved into an apartment with three other roommates. There were four guys living in the apartment, and he said that his roommate was over 400 pounds, bigger than he was, and he brought girls over all the time from OkCupid. That was the only dating site that he used, but he brought them over. He's completely overweight, practically morbidly obese, yet he is able to attract people and get them to initiate the conversations, and he has a method. And a big thing I notice is that a lot of the people who want to talk about game and pick-up artistry are definitely people who aren't in relationships, or they aren't pick-up artists, or they don't have a very strong game. So I'm definitely not even trying to advise anybody. The only thing I would say, and if there's actually any nugget of advice in this episode, it is that only listen to your friends who actually are successful in the dating world, because so many times you'll encounter a friend who is not successful who's telling you, hey, this is how the world should be. Um, but that's just it. And the sad thing is, though, a lot of those guys that I was just talking about, they didn't want to share their method because they want to keep it all to themselves. They don't want people to know everything. And sometimes you'll hear people say, you just got to be confident. 9/10 of it is confidence. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Because when you actually get under the surface a little bit with these pickup artist types, they have a strategy. They have a method. And you also see from the guy who's only been with 25 women that it's not that you have to be with 1,500 women like John Anthony to know what you're doing, and that's absolute nonsense on the other end with these dating coaches who are bragging about, oh, they've been with 500 women or 600, or as I said, 1,500. You can have a system that works even if you aren't using it all the time. But that's the whole point. A system can exist, And there used to be this book out there called The Platinum Guide to Dating. It was a blog like on Google Blogspot, and each blog entry was a chapter. I don't think it was ever in print form. And it's in the first one, it says that there are three components: one third smoothness, one third confidence, and one third building a rapport with the other person. And I mean, it's definitely some interesting food for thought, and there are all sorts of resources out there that provide things. See, my biggest issue throughout my adulthood was that there's all this material online, and there's all of these free resources, and I would read them and I would understand them, but then I would never do anything with it. Like, say, for example, somebody once sent me this article on men's fashion and what's the most attractive way to look, what is the most popular cologne that gets the highest results, and the best feedback from women, and I would understand that, and I would be like, yeah, I just don't want to pay for this stuff. Well, that's the problem. I mean, that is the biggest problem, is it not? So, I think that in the heart and soul of this, the black pillars are making the false assumption that the physical appearance is so overwhelmingly important that it trumps everything else. But when I actually listen to the guys on these debates or sharing their own ideas, they're mostly talking, though, about social status rather than looks and physical appearance, because we said that stuff about hypergamy at the beginning, and I noticed that a lot of what they're talking about is that guys who have lots of money can attract women, or guys that have something that is very prestigious, like maybe someone who's a famous actor or a famous musician, even if they aren't conventionally attractive, that can supersede the looks and physical appearance thing. So, I mean, that's what I'm really hearing. But if you've listened this far into the episode, I think there's a very important message, and that is that these black pillars are just saying ordinary statements, cheap, blunt, unsophisticated statements, and they really don't have any type of profound idea. Instead, they're just trying to make ordinary life seem like something that it is not. Because what's your point? Physical appearances can attract people? Yes. What's your point? Money can attract someone? Yes. I mean, what's your point? You can use different methods to find a romantic partner, and sometimes it will work and sometimes it will won't. I mean, they really just have no solid idea. They're just saying very general statements. Oh yeah, girls like guys who have attractive physical appearances. Yeah, well, we already knew that. You aren't really educating us on anything. Girls like guys who have lots of money. Yeah, we already knew that. You're not really educating us on anything. But just to say that it is absolutely hopeless, well, no, firstly, it's not, as we said, because of all those reasons. It is possible to develop some type of approach or system or have some type of methodology that is going to be functional and practical and will work for you. There was one black pillar named QB Passport. I think that's QB something. I think it was QB Passport. But he was talking about how it just makes more sense, though, to go international. That's the passport thing. He particularly liked to go to Mexico because it's just easier to approach people in those types of environments. And he was African American, and he's saying that he doesn't even really speak Spanish, but he's been able to meet people in nightclubs, and it's just about his physical appearance. That's why they are attracted to him. And I think that he's completely missing a major point. That is not only appearance, that is also status, because he's American, because he is from a different country. There is some type of status issue that's going on there, and I mean that does relate to hypergamy, but it definitely means that physical appearances aren't the most important thing out there. And there's also something on the notion of this whole thing about money and the way you look and somebody's overall superficial presentation. And I think it was on the Tyra Banks show when I heard this. Must have been back in 2005 or 6. They were talking about sugar babies, like a sugar daddy and a sugar baby. And this woman married a guy who was very wealthy, and she said she wasn't physically attracted to him. She even said that he looked like a garden gnome or a lawn gnome, something like that. She definitely used the word gnome in there. And then the host was asking her, well, like, why are you with him? Is it just his money? She's like, no, I'm very attracted to him. It's like, whoa, wait a second. You just said that you weren't physically attracted to him. And then she said, yes, but I'm attracted to him. It's not just how. Sorry, I really butchered that one. It's not just that he has money, it's how he made the money. And do you really see where that's going? It's because he's a strong, competent, capable businessman, because he has the ability to succeed, and none of that has to do with his physical appearance, and none of that even has to do with his money. It's because he's competent. It's because he's probably good at everything he tries. I mean, if he's turned himself into some type of self-made multimillionaire. And Dr. Jordan Peterson talked about this a lot when he would say that women are attracted to a man's ability to succeed across all possible dominance hierarchies. And if you don't like that particular language, AMS, Alpha Male Solutions, did a perhaps more easier to understand breakdown, and he said that women are attracted to abundance. It's just that's the commonality with this whole thing. Oh, it's a lot of money, or he has a very attractive physical appearance, or he has lots of resources, or he has lots of personal connections, or he has the ability to open new doors for her in her life. I mean, it's abundance, and that seems to be a particular type of commonality, and that should include the ability to succeed across all possible dominance hierarchies. He has a lot of potential for success, and the potential for success is not purely linked to physical appearance, and it doesn't even have to be a status issue, because Rollo Tomasi, who's the author of The Rational Male and the host of the YouTube program of the same name, says that very clearly. It does not have to mean that a guy is in a higher social circle to attract women. It just means that he has to have the ability to succeed across the dominance hierarchies. He just has to have the potential to succeed across the dominance hierarchies. And I think that the pickup artists and the dating coaches out there are really trying to argue with these black pill types, because they want to show that this is a learnable skill. This is something that people can do to alter their course in life, and you can learn how to use the internet and dating profiles, and there is almost not an art to it, but there are methods that can be employed, and some of these are very expensive. As I said, John Anthony Lifestyle, he has a channel and a dating service. I think he charges $1,000 an hour, and then Alex from Playing with Fire charges $169 for his course, where he shows people how to attract women. And there are a whole host of problems with those guys as well, because when you actually hear some of the things that they are telling people to do, well, say that you're 2 inches taller on your dating profile, and in this one, he was like telling a guy, well, hey, do you have a friend with a motorcycle? Can he take your photo while you're sitting on the motorcycle? And the guy's like, but I don't know how to ride a motorcycle. Oh, well, yeah, but just do it for the photo. Oh, and do you have a friend who plays the guitar? Can you take a photo holding the guitar? He's like, but I don't play the guitar. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Just take it for the photo. And all of this stuff is just fake. I mean, just putting on this fake facade to try and attract people, and then you tell them the truth. Oh, no, that wasn't really my motorcycle. I'm just doing it for the photo. Okay, well, why do you have to pay somebody $169 just to tell you, yeah, lie to people to get what you want? I really am not impressed in that direction either, and it appears that there are a lot of people who might seem like they have lost the connection with hope, and they have no other choice. But I think a lot of it is, though, that with black pillars, there's another vital lesson. So much of this is manipulation. So much of this is trying to control other people, and I don't hear that from anyone else. Because when I was listening to one of those debates on Playing with Fire, there was a black pillar who was talking about how physical appearances are very important, and he said that, firstly, someone has to be attracted to his appearance, and then, after they like the way he looks, then they find him funny. and then they want to hear what he has to say. It's kind of like Gerard Butler in the movie The Ugly Truth, when he says when they talk about love at first sight, they're not talking about your personality, sort of down those lines. But what I really noticed was the guy didn't sound like he was very strong or confident, or that he was very apt when it came to standing up for himself. And this is what I mean by a manipulation tactic. Just sitting back, not doing anything, and sometimes he will attract a woman who is not very desirable and has no other options. And then he's going to tell himself, well, you see, what I'm doing is working. I got into a relationship, and then it turns out he's in a relationship with someone who is not very pleasant and not very fun to be around and not very good for him, but he just went out with her because she was his only option, and rinse, lather, repeat. He is taking anybody who will come along, and here's another important point. Dominant women do not care who they're dating. Did you hear me? Dominant women do not care who they're dating. And the reason why is because as long as you have somewhat reasonable hygiene, they're just going to try and manipulate the relationship to their advantage. And that's what's going to happen with somebody like that, who is just going to allow someone to walk all over him, and then he's going to tell himself, hey, I'm in a relationship. Hey, it worked for a little while. But the problem is, though, he's allowing people to come into his life whom he doesn't want, and he has this excuse for not trying or not succeeding or not going after anything else. And it's just kind of sitting around doing nothing and letting people talk, yeah, yeah, okay, okay, yeah, yeah, okay, okay, and then just doing whatever in his own type of chaotic way. And instead of breaking free from the chaotic cycle and going after what he actually wants, it's just that same manipulative cycle, and the man and the woman are just caught in this back and forth of who can out-manipulate the other, when in all reality, they're both somewhat chaotic individuals. But I really don't hear a lot of people talking about that in terms of a manipulation tactic, but um, conventionally nice people, conventionally agreeable people, they can be very, very controlling and so on. And as I said, Dr. Robert Glover also talks about this. As I said, he wrote the book No More Mr. Nice Guy, as well as Dating Essentials for Men, when he says nice guys act like they don't have to change. They're saying, I'm not yelling at anyone, I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings, I'm not trying to steal, I'm not trying to cheat on anyone, therefore I don't have to change. But what they don't actually realize is their arrogant and holier-than-thou behavior is taking its toll on the relationships, and it creates a lot of problems. But there's so many points that I want to go through about, like, in my own life that I found were somewhat successful. But I just said something at the beginning about how maybe you should preserve that for other people. So I will hold back and instead say that there are lots of good resources online. But if you ever do find something that makes sense to you, all I will say is don't be like me. Go after it. And a perfect example of this would be when I was reading Dr. Robert Greene's The Art of Seduction. Like, it was in one of those bookstores like Border Books. It was Borders, actually, before they went bankrupt, and it said something to the effect of, it's good to make people laugh, but if you focus too much on being funny, she will only think of you as a joke. And that made perfect sense to me. Did I ever change my behavior? No. I just did whatever I wanted. And that's just an example of how something was presented to me that perhaps could have made my life better, but I didn't do anything with it. And I noticed that a lot of these other black pillars are in this very similar mindset, and they also are just making excuses about why they don't have to change. And I was also just listening to this on Playing with Fire when somebody said, I don't even know if it was in a black pill discussion, they're talking about guys who don't have the ability to leave the country and to go to another country to try and meet people. They were talking about Colombia and Mexico. They're like, oh, well, maybe he has a solid job in America. And I was just wondering about that stuff as well, because, someone might have a job, but if they're saying that they're living in this type of misery, if they have some type of miserable lifestyle that they're just trudging through, then obviously they are choosing to stay in that miserable lifestyle rather than pursue something else that could actually allow them to achieve what they want. I mean, well, why don't you quit your job? Why don't you get rid of that apartment? I mean, even if it costs you several $1,000s, I mean, you can make the plan to move to Mexico or move to Colombia if you think that you have better odds there, or you could try one of these dating coaches online who's going to charge you $200 to have you lie and misrepresent yourself. Now, I'm sure they do other stuff. It's just, it really is quite odd to try and pay for a service like that. But in all reality, though, there are lots of free resources out online. And Robert Greene, I said, wrote The Art of Seduction. He also wrote The 48 Laws of Power. He co-authored The 50th Law. He has all kinds of books out there that talk about persuasion and so on. But I've also found that just entering into some components of the red pill, like even Rollo Tomasi, for example, talks about the differences between men and women. That's valuable to learn, as well as listening to channels like Bulldog Mindset that talk about ways that you can respond to people. Like the guy who's in the relationship where the girl is walking all over him. Well, what can you say to challenge people on that? What can you do to handle situations like that? Or you can listen to somebody else's stories about how did they handle a particular situation and how did they respond to it. And those are all types of messages that you can learn in assertiveness training. And I'm going to play a video clip in just a second. It's from a documentary that's called My Brand New Face, which was about two men who had neurofibromatosis, and one of them is going to be featured here, and his name is Maurice Simpson. And on the notion of just looks and status mean everything and you can't attract a partner otherwise, well, he is someone who is dealing with a facial deformity, and he had tumors that grew all over half of his face, but he still got married and he had kids. And even if you think that there's some type of extreme example in it, it really isn't, though. Okay, I'll play the clip and then we can
After a grueling 10-hour
respond.
shift, Maurice returns home.
Dinner time.
It's summer vacation, and his wife, Charity, is preparing lunch for their 4 children.
Oh my god.
Anything I can do to help? I want to help. Want me to get you out your way?
I want you to do what you normally do.
What I normally do.
Maurice and Charity have 2 boys, 6-year-old Maurice Jr. and 3-year-old Jalen Allen. They also care part-time for Maurice's 2 older children, 13-year-old Shayla and 11-year-old Rashawn.
What are you doing?
I ignore them until somebody starts crying.
Maurice inherited the NF gene from his father. Although each of his children had a 50% chance of getting it from him, none of them are carriers.
That's how we do it.
Here, honey.
Oh yeah. Fish and chips.
Maurice met Charity when he saw her working in a deli and asked her out.
Good game.
I wasn't bothered by the way he looked. I just was impressed with how much confidence he had, and it was just really comforting to be with somebody like that.
And one more time, that was from My Brand New Face, and it is the story of Maurice Simpson. But some people might just look at that and they would think, oh yeah, well that would never happen to the average person or who had that type of medical condition. That's just the exception that proves the rule. But it's not. It absolutely is not, because his wife is talking all about how she was attracted to his confidence and his personality, and it's exactly that what that Platinum Guide to Dating was talking about. 1/3 smoothness, 1/3 confidence, and 1/3 building a rapport with the person. And the whole point is, it's an ability that can be learned and can be demonstrated. And a person can overcome the type of physical features that they have, no matter what they are. So this whole black pill notion about status and money and just using physical appearances and superficiality. No, and in terms of like having money, they did say that Maurice is the manager of a restaurant, and I'm sure he's not absolutely bankrupt. He has a house and 4 children actually, but I mean, this whole black pill thing just seems a little bit ridiculous. Now, in one of the debates that I heard, it was featured John Anthony, the guy from John Anthony Lifestyle, and he was talking about the YouTuber Wheat Waffle, saying that the content is very depressing and that it is leading people to do destructive things, perhaps committing suicide, or maybe even worse, committing something like a mass homicide. And he said that this YouTuber named Wheat Waffles, I don't know why he calls himself that, he says that he needs to be canceled, taken down. People shouldn't be listening to his content. And what's the real answer? Well, you can see that I heavily disagree with this type of black pill ideology. I absolutely have to challenge that point because, as I said, I host Black Box Online Radio, which is mostly a true crime channel, and if someone is going to watch a series of videos on YouTube and then commit suicide, or they're going to go out and commit a mass shooting or another type of violent act, that person almost certainly has a pre-existing mental condition. And it's just that the form of media is exacerbating it, because it doesn't have to be YouTube videos. They blamed video games for the longest time. They blamed music for the longest time, or TV shows, or ideas that you can find in books or comic books. But as a fundamental rule, you don't blame the videos. You don't blame the TV shows. You don't blame the video games. You don't blame the books. You don't blame the comic books. Even if somebody is putting out some of the most heinous content that you could imagine, there's no hope for you, it will end tomorrow. If somebody actually chooses to think of that as anything other than some type of media, some type of video book or video game or TV show, then that person has the inability to differentiate between some type of content that has been prepared in some sort of artificial world and the real world in which we truly exist in. And that is all about mental stability at that point. So I definitely just say as a fundamental rule, do not blame the content and do not blame the content creator. So I think the most honest answer is that it's just going to be a mental health issue and you need more resources and access to treatment for people. I mean, perhaps you could say that the content might show somebody the method. That might show someone the how, but it's not the why. It's not the force that is making them do this. That is their own pre-existing mental condition. And I think at the end of the day, most of us are truly aware of that. And but the way that somebody introduced this stuff on media to me was when you watch Superman, whether it's the movies or the cartoon, and you see Superman standing in front of a gun like the Man of Steel, and someone's firing a gun at him and the bullets just bounce off that person's chest. If anybody were ever to actually try that in real life, they would know. Well, I mean, like, if they thought that, then they would have some type of inability to differentiate between fantasy and reality. They would have some type of delusional disorder. They would have some type of mental problem that needs to be addressed, because you are expected to know that you're not Superman, that if someone shoots a gun at you, the bullet is not going to bounce off your chest like the Man of Steel. And it's the same with everything. Even if there's some YouTuber out there who's saying some very depressing stuff, well, I mean, the real opportunity or the real focus is on the concept of choice. And there's actually a book out there by Dr. Phil called Life Code, which talks about how you cannot ever accept any type of mistreatment, abuse, or any type of wrongdoing on the part of somebody else because they have some type of justification. Like, say, for example, if somebody were to watch a series of videos on YouTube and then they go out and commit a mass shooting, or if it's in the UK and they commit some other type of violent act, whether it's using knives or something, because they don't have a lot of guns available in the UK, if they are going to watch a series of videos and commit a mass shooting, you cannot blame the videos, because the abuser or the criminal, the assailant, the perpetrator has conscious choice. That person has the ability to stop. That person has the ability to walk away. And this is what juries are going to be looking at least here in the United States of America. They're going to be looking at somebody who say, well, did they have the ability to turn around and say, no, I'm not going to do this? Were they in a state of mind when they had the ability to differentiate between legal and illegal? Were they aware of the law? And I think overwhelmingly the answer would be yes. Again, someone is trying to use this this creation from somebody else, whether it's a video or a book or some other form of a publication, to just simply use that as a scapegoat for their own destructive tendencies. They're very angry about something else, but it's also a mental instability issue. And it's not only that they don't have a woman in their life or they don't have access to romantic partners. In fact, that's quite to the contrary. I think that much more of it is about not having the neurotransmitters functioning correctly in the brain. I mean, really, some components, genetics, there's something in the genes, neurotransmitters like serotonin and norepinephrine, and then can even be beyond neurotransmitters, be some type of neurological functioning. I mean, there are parts of the brain that are very, very vital into the way that we deal with things, because the black pillars will talk about this so much. Like, if somebody goes out and they say hi to a woman and then she starts screaming at them, that person's confidence is going to be destroyed. Your confidence should never be destroyed if you just try and approach somebody and they get angry with you. Why? Because that has almost nothing to do with you 90% of the time. 10% yes, 90% no. Why do I say that? Because there are different parts of the brain. There are parts of the brain like the amygdala that deal with emotions, and then there are parts of the brain like the prefrontal cortex that deal with anticipation and decision making, and specific parts of the prefrontal cortex. And if somebody is just going to start screaming at you because you asked them a question or you said hi and they didn't like your facial expression, that means that they have an irregularity between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex, and they have a problem with anticipation and decision making. That's them. They're going to act like that no matter what. If anything happens that they didn't anticipate, they're going to start freaking out and screaming. So the problem is other people. I mean, Scott Adams, the writer and the cartoonist behind Dilbert, said it the best. I've realized the problem with the world. It's other people. And I know it's just like the blame game, but it's absolutely true. Other people will drag you down. And there's some other issues, though, that I mean, like, neurological functioning should not be downplayed, because there are other parts of the brain, in the cortex as well, like the orbitofrontal cortex, which deals with desire. And they say with serial killers that there is an irregularity between the orbitofrontal cortex and the amygdala, and a psychopathic serial killer is most likely going to have an amygdala that is on average of 17% smaller. So this person is going to act on their desires, and they aren't going to feel any emotion for the person whom they are hurting. And I think a lot of people in relationships and strangers that you happen to talk to in public are going to do nasty things to you, and they aren't going to feel bad as well. Maybe their amygdala isn't 17% smaller, maybe it's only 5% smaller than the average person. They don't want to kill you, but they definitely don't care about you. And there are other people who take delight in misery. And another point, though, that really needs to be heightened about this whole black pill movement is that it completely fails to understand that there are personality traits out there. And how about the big 5 traits? OCEAN is the acronym: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. And you can alter your personality traits. All that stuff I was saying at the beginning about people who are good at talking to women, Well, how about personality traits? I mean, if you are high in trait extroversion, you're more likely to experience the conventional form of happiness. So someone can try to become more extroverted. But the problem is, though, all of those black pillars are just sitting back and they're saying, no, I don't want to try because it's hopeless. Well, I mean, damned if you do, damned if you don't. I mean, like, or just, that's living by the rule of if you don't try, you will never fail. And then they turn around and they say that I have nothing. Well, you didn't try to do anything. Or some people will like do this is even more common than if you never try, you won't fail. Some people half-ass things, or they do a really crappy attempt at something, and then they're just like, see, I tried and it didn't work, so they give up in the first chance they get. Or they're like, no, I'm just, I bit off more than I can chew, so I'm just going to give up. Ridiculous nonsense. Hogwash. Baloney. This is just out of, this world. That like, people know what they have to do. They know how they should do it, but they just don't want to. Why? Manipulation. Sit back and let other people do things for them. Sit back and see if somebody comes to them. And if they don't, well, whatever, I didn't put any effort into that anyway. And depending on their mental stability, then something worse might happen. Now, in terms of how people are dealing with mental health issues, John Sonmez of Bulldog Mindset was talking about how instead of feeling depressed about not being in a relationship or having a romantic partner and contemplating suicide, what he was advising men to do was do whatever you want. Don't kill yourself, don't hurt yourself, and don't hurt other people. Do whatever you want. If you don't really care about life, why don't you go to a salsa class and start dancing in your underwear? Like, do absolutely anything that you could possibly think of doing. And I really wish he hadn't said that, because that shows an absolute disconnect from the heart of the issue. The reason why people are feeling depressed about not being able to form relationships isn't because of not going out and doing things. No, I mean, and going salsa dancing in your underwear, that's just going to get you rejected even more. Yes, anybody can be weird. Anybody can be unpleasant. Anybody can do unconventional things that will make people dislike them. You know that, and I know that. But the problem is, though, the people who are feeling depressed and contemplating suicide because they don't have romantic partners are missing something. And what is it? Acceptance, validation, and most importantly, approval. Approval from their desired sexual partner. And I know that that is going to sound like it's a little bit rough for people to hear, but I do indeed believe that it is true. And so those are things that you cannot buy. Those are things that you cannot do on your own. And this is why people are experiencing those types of very ill feelings, because no matter what they do, they go salsa dancing in your underwear. You can run up down the streets painted yellow. You could kind of just swing from the vines in the forest or the jungle if you wanted to, but that's not going to give them acceptance, validation, and approval. So I really think that instead of trying to do anything like that, it would just be to solve the problem. And if you were going to be faced with this whole challenge of it's just going to be hopeless for you, no one will ever want you the way you are because of the way you look and because of your social status and because of who you are, well, why don't you just say, forget that, screw that damn noise, and do it? And one of the big points that or the big things that I regret is when I was much younger, I'm 34 now, but when I was 18, 19, and 20 and sitting around feeling sorry for myself because no one likes me, I really regret not composing a plan to get what I want, to get the relationship that I desired, to get the experiences that I wanted to have, even if it has to be awkward. To how about reading those books and reading those websites and actually doing the stuff that they recommended? And this guy's talking about moving to Colombia or Mexico. Yeah, take a semester off college. face all the people. What? Why are you doing that? Oh, dude, that's weird. All of those unwanted comments and people who are going to try and ruin it for you, or people that are going to tell you that you're wasting their time. And it doesn't even have to mean I didn't have to go to Mexico or Colombia. That wasn't on my horizon back then. But instead, make the plan. Move somewhere else if there's like a better place where I should have been living, even if it's only for 3 months. Find a way to make it happen. And I think a lot of it is hindsight is 20/20. The rearview mirror is clearer than the windshield. But also, it's difficult. It's difficult. It's difficult to overcome those emotional barriers because I think it's really what Dr. Robert Glover said, that nice guys think that they don't have to change because they don't feel that they're doing anything wrong. Therefore, other people need to change. And this is one of the reasons why you should listen to everybody. Listen to many, follow no one, because aside from the black pill, in the red pill community, Rollo Tomasi, as I said, who hosts the Rational Mail, talks a lot about this when he uses the term gynocentric social order. And there's something valuable in that because when you have a boy in America, he's going to preschool or kindergarten. Almost always he has a female teacher. And the teacher wants the boy to act like a girl, even to the point where the ideal student in elementary school is a boring nice guy. Someone who's polite and well-behaved and helps others and wants to share and wants to be kind and wants to be generous. All of those boring nice guy characteristics are valued by female teachers at a very young age. But what happens is when someone turns 13 or 14, they are absolutely undesirable to the world of dating and human interaction and what Rollo says is intersectional dynamics. So I think that that might be one of the points that I think is much clearer, and maybe he hit the nail on the head, but I think that you just cannot listen to a single person. You can't just enter into this black pill world and think that it's true or that it's right, because most of what they're saying is absolute garbage. Most of what they're saying is just sad, pessimistic nonsense. And as I said, a lot of it really is a little bit of con artistry when they're talking about women care about money, women care about looks, women care about your social status. Yeah, men also care about looks. You ever heard that? Men care about how a woman looks. So, it's just not very impressive. But then when you actually hear the guys talking, like I said that QB Passport guy or Wheat Waffles, or what was that other one? It's Green Skin Chronic, or is it Undead Chronic, I think's his name. He actually just talks about some very basic things that aren't even black pill. They're just ordinary, boring, mundane statements that, oh, there are different ways to attract partners, or there are different ways to have conversations with people, and not everyone is going to be super active on dating sites and dating platforms. We already knew that. What on earth are they doing sharing this stuff with people? But at this point, I would like to turn it over to you guys. What do you think about anything associated with the Black Pill movement? What do you think about these ideas? And I've been fairly critical of them. I don't think I've been astronomically critical and like doing all the name calling and such, but I absolutely disagree with this concept of it's all about looks, money, and status, or superficiality. And if you don't have that, you don't have a certain height or a certain ethnicity, you're just doomed. No. Ridiculousness. But you can weigh in the comments section down below, and you can feel free to visit Black Box Online Radio, which is the if you like to hear about true crime, talking mostly about serial killers, the Zodiac Killer, and Fridays on Anything Goes, where any subject is fair game over on BBOR. Thank you so much, and until next time.